Hi, everyone. It's Heather. In just a minute, I'm going to be introducing you to Elena, a daughter who wrote in all the way from Guatemala. And yes, I still nerd out anytime anyone outside of the U.S. finds this little show of ours. It is always one of those pinch me moments for me. Elena's story is also going to mean so much to all of you. And while I was working on this particular episode and holding Elena's words, my inbox filled with pitches for products to be advertised on the show. A meal delivery service, a probiotic company, a biohacking product. As Mayhem grows, those offers continue to come. That's the business of podcasts. But imagine this for a second. You're listening to Elena from Guatemala, and suddenly a voice cuts in. Try our meal kit. I cannot imagine anything more jarring or dysregulating. It wouldn't be trauma-informed, and it most certainly wouldn't be mayhem. So I've been saying no. That honesty, though, has a cost. Each episode takes 4 to 6 hours to make, and when I say no to ads, I'm also saying no to income and to resources I could be using to put back into growing mayhem. And I hold that tension every single week. Still, I am committed to keeping this space safe and centered on daughters, which is why I'm asking you to consider supporting the show if you can. If you're already inside of Mayhem Daughters, our online community, or a member of one of our Tuesday or Thursday support groups, you are already a sponsor of this show and of the work I'm putting out there, and I thank you. If you listen here and want to help keep Mayhem ad-free, you can contribute any amount over at mayhemdaughters.com. If that's not possible for you, please know this. This podcast will always be free and available, and it will never be hidden behind a paywall. That's my promise to you. Okay, thank you for holding this space with me. Now, here's Elena. On to Mayhem.
Today on Mother Mayhem.
Rage, when we look at it through the healing lens, is actually just energy. It's healing. It is your wise mind. It's your system saying, and sometimes, let's admit it, screaming, this wasn't right. I deserved better. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the podcast for daughters of narcissistic and emotionally limited mothers. I'm your host, Heather Gray. And today, daughters, I get to introduce you to Elena, who wrote into the show all the way from Guatemala. We really are a community of women around the world, and this means so much to me. Elena's story is one that I think everyone listening is going to relate to. She is sitting in a positive world of hurt, rage, anger, grief. All of those feelings are getting piled on top of each other, and she's struggling with seeing her way through all of them. There's so much she's working through, so much pain, so much loss, and so much personal history. And she's managing all of this on what feels like a really shaky foundation, because she doesn't feel certain about who she is, what she likes, or what her real, actual, true self and personality are. Because ever since she can remember, she was always described, defined, and narrated by her mom. So she doesn't know what she likes and doesn't like, and because all of this feels as though it was predetermined by her mother. And I know so many daughters listening to me as I say this. Elena, they all just sat up a little. They got a little straighter in their chairs and started listening just a little bit closer, because them too. They too have wondered and worried about this. They too have felt disconnected from themselves, and they too need the same guidance you're seeking today. I am so glad to be sitting with all of you, and I think I'll be able to help. But first, let me tell you about your name. I actually named you Elena after a client I had when I worked in community mental health. She had survived a domestically violent attack, and working with her, I watched her rebuild her life from the ground up. She was such a fighter, and she overcame so many obstacles. And I learned so much from her about what can be overcome. And I also learned what's possible when you simply show up for your life and for what you deserve. She endured an absolutely positively horrific court process, all in a language that was not her own, and testified for herself, despite incredibly brutal character attacks and lies said about her. She was remarkable, and she fucking won. She put her abuser in jail and got full custody of her twin boys. And I was so proud of her. And it is a privilege to be able to honor her and her name today. So, Elena, this is your story, and I will find all of you on the other side. Dear Heather, first, I want to thank you for dedicating your time and work to help us daughters. I'm sure you're changing lives and giving hope to so many of us. Certainly, you have given it to me. I've been thinking about writing to you for a long time, but never got to do it. It seems that is my life, thinking about doing things, but never doing them. I started listening to your podcast, downloaded all the resources, but still have continued listening without really doing any of the work. So I'm stuck in my head, trying to move ahead in my becoming the real me, but stuck in a loop of self-pity or self-something without being able to break it. I want to apologize in advance because when trying to share something, I ended up giving so much context. I didn't mean for this to be the blog entry it became. Sorry. It's like I'm two people, Heather. I've always felt as if I'm watching myself live life, as if I were in my head, narrating and commenting and looking at myself go through the grind, doing things, but unable to put all of those together into me, the person. What pushed me into the self-awareness journey, the feeling of all the feelings, etc.? Well, unfortunately and sadly, it was a death. My brother died in 2019. His illness started in 2008. He had an abscess in his brain and had surgery, but then he suffered microstrokes. Seemed like every year and a half, he would have an episode, and he lost abilities and ended up back living with Mother. He first became ill in 2008. His wife left him and took the kids. She was incredibly mean to him and unreasonable, I think. She insisted he had to provide for them, and since he couldn't do that, well, then that was that. I miss my brother, and I'm really sad that he died. But mostly, I am sad that he never really lived as a free, independent person. One day I was reminiscing with my husband, and he said, well, I am sorry he's gone, but let's be honest. If he were still alive and if he hadn't been ill and lost his abilities, he would probably still be depending on your mother, and she for sure would still be defending him and doing everything for him. And he's probably right. I've come to understand what Mother is. Geez, I still cannot even put it into words, even in writing. I can name in my head what she is, put the tag on her. Her behaviors fit the descriptions you give on some of the episodes about covert narcissists. My brother suffered from health problems since early childhood. He had something with his palate when he was born, I think a cleft palate. And I remember Mother telling the story of her going with him to many doctors to get the right diagnosis, and then finding the perfect doctor who gave good instructions, and how she massaged his palate every evening until he became better, and how she went to many places to find the right speech therapist until she managed to make him okay. But she would always care for him in a way that I think made him feel handicapped. When he was a kid, he had asthma, and he had to have some surgery for an intestinal problem, and then again for something else. There was always something. And she made sure we all knew how special he was and how strongly he had fought to make sure he was a normal kid. I mean, now I see there was just a need to control absolutely every step he took, a need to be ever present and all deciding. I was born a year after him. I was just a kid. I had nothing wrong. I mean, I could take care of myself. An anecdote she loved telling me was how I, being younger, would help him put his socks on. Her other favorite was how when I was a baby, he playfully poured a whole bottle of oil on me and then put baby powder on top of it. Such a funny anecdote for her. So cringy. That is something I only recently realized. My mother always tells anecdotes. Whenever me or someone else talks about something, she starts with the anecdotes, as if an episode in life can summarize what someone is, and I hate it. She took care of my brother. She was always there for him, taking care of things, sorting out issues in school, sorting out issues. When he lost one of his first jobs, it was her who went and asked why and demanded his last payment. When he failed the class his last year of high school, it was someone else's fault, and she would have been able to sort it out had she been here. She had been working in the U.S. at the time. When he got married, he continued living at home, and the wife never really did anything. When they moved out to her family's place, probably forced by her, she was always going there to help with the kids, to help with something, to help. Such a helpful person she is. And me, well, I always felt like an accessory, Heather. When I was a kid, she would bring me everywhere, like a purse. Sadly for her, I was never the perfect kid she always wanted to have. I was never small, cute, or girly enough. In fact, I take after my dad's family. So I'm tall, my skin is brown, and my hair is, well, at least a little bit dark. And I'm tall and big and probably always will be. She took me to a doctor when I was 10 to put me on a very restrictive diet. Not sure if it was a real doctor now that I think about it. I ended up with a skin condition and my gums bleeding, and my uncle, who was a doctor and my hero, was the only one who stood up to her and asked what the hell she was thinking. As a teenager, when my childhood was still not that far away, I used to think of myself as a very shy and quiet person. But it turns out I'm not, Heather. I'm chatty, and I like meeting people, and I sing, and I stand up on a stage, and I feel at home. I feel at ease, and I'm friendly and funny. But as a kid, I remember feeling like I was always inside, inside myself. I recall feeling as if my life was a movie I was watching, and I was quiet like a mouse. I feel cheated, Heather. I struggle to remember my childhood. I remember my mother's stories about things that happened, events or situations during my childhood, but for the love of the goddesses, I cannot remember who I was. As a teenager, my personality started showing, and oh, Heather, she hated it. She could not bring me anywhere, and if she guilted me to go with her to her friend's house, to a party, or to whatever, I would dress in my favorite clothes, which at the time was anything that didn't resemble her, like hippie clothes and sandals or things of the sort. I love knowing that about you, Elena. So she stopped. So here, my first question, Heather. How do I know who I am really? Am I something completely different from this image I built to be the opposite of what she is? Am I like her? How do I find out? Is it too late to ask myself this? I am 57 years old. I mean, come on. I should have had this all figured out by now. Anyway, back to my brother. Early 2018, he seemed to be getting better, was even going to the gym and walking and talking more. And suddenly he had one of those mini strokes episodes that left him unable to eat or drink. They put a nasal tube in him for nutrients and hydration. Then his body started rejecting everything, and the tubes were removed. I think if he had been left alone, he would have passed away then. But no, of course my mother could not let go. She was in such pain and suffered so much to see him like that she found a doctor that agreed to put a gastrostomy tube, which kept him alive for 1 year. It was the first time I openly disagreed with her, and I told her so. I was so angry, Heather. He couldn't speak. He couldn't decide. So she went ahead with the procedure. She accused me of wanting to let him starve to death. It hurt, Heather. I was just trying to let my brother be at peace. Anyway, she went ahead with the surgery. The doctor told her it's only because we have no laws to prevent you from doing this because your daughter is right. The doctor also explained that in about a year, his lungs might fail, and the only thing that could be done medically would be putting him on a respirator. But he would not do that. When, after a year, his lungs did indeed start failing, my husband had to disconnect the phone to prevent her from calling an ambulance to take him to the hospital. And he finally passed away and found his peace, I hope. I was not home when my brother died. I had been working abroad since 2010. I was, of course, paying all the bills, his and hers, and my nephew's and niece's school, and most likely my sister-in-law's supermarket bills. But this is another sad story that I won't get into the details here. The thing is, he died, and I was so broken, Heather. I flew back home in time for the funeral, and I was so sad, and I just couldn't stay. She was in such pain, and I just had no energy to deal with her because, of course, it was the perfect scenario for her. And I feel so petty saying that, even thinking it. But Heather, she was the center. Everyone in the family, friends, everyone could only talk about how strong she was, how sad this was for her, how she made sacrifices for her son, how wonderful she was as a mother, always by his side. And no, I was so angry. No, it was nothing good. She got what she wanted in the end, Heather. Full, absolute control of him. She decided when, what, how much to feed him, when to bathe him, which pajamas to put on him, who could see him, who could not. He did not have any dignity left, any privacy, nothing. And I felt such rage, Heather. Everyone worried that she would just waste away after his death. No, of course. She thrived. Not even a month had passed, Heather, and she had already cleaned his room, given away all his clothes and belongings. But that was 6 years ago. And now age has caught up to her. She is old, frail, and now we are staying with her during the weekends. And Heather, I hate feeling like this, but I cannot stand her. I can barely talk to her because I feel like screaming at her. So, on to my other question. How do I get all of this rage out? Do I have to tell her how I feel about all the things she did and didn't do? And how can I get all the things I never told anyone, but I know she did, out of my system? Will telling her what she did and how I felt make any difference? I think I know what you're going to say. I just want to hear you say it and call me sister when you do. All right, sister. Promise I'll do that. I don't mention my father in this letter because he was mostly absent. He didn't do any good for me. He was a married man and we were the other family. When we were kids, she always told stories about how she knew he was the one the minute they met. I never figured out why he would be home for just a couple of days and then disappear. I always thought he had a mysterious job or something. Turns out, no, he was just an office worker and he was married. She had to tell us because he had a stroke when I was 14 and my brother was 15. He was in the hospital, but we couldn't visit. And then he died. So before going to the funeral, she told us that day, she said, there at the funeral, you won't be able to be inside because he has another family. Elena. And it was really awkward for us. You think? But we dealt with it. We grew up in an incredibly chaotic house with grandparents, uncles, a cousin who grew up as another sibling for us, his father, my Mom's brother had died when he was 8, and his mother left him there with the grandparents. It was very loud. We had no privacy. We had no sense of individuality. At least I didn't. But anyway, I think I'll leave it here. There are so many things I have inside that this would become like a novel, and it's already 5 pages long. Sorry again, Heather. Oh, we do not apologize for that, sister friend. If you made it this far, thank you for reading, and thanks for any guidance, any or all you can give. Oh, Elena, sweetie, I am so very glad you showed up for yourself by writing in with this letter and sharing your story and your truth. And I am really, really proud of you for letting all of us get to know you. When I sit with your story, what strikes me here is just how many different layers and parts of it you're juggling. There's grief, there's rage, there's identity confusion, and then there's this stuck place you've been in. The one where listening to the podcast feels like something that's possible for you, but following through on the skills and the prompts and the directions I offer starts to feel impossible. And that isn't avoidance, even though I'm probably pretty sure that that's what it feels like. Like it or not, sister, that is your nervous system at work. And I totally get it. She can be really super annoying sometimes. Let me help you understand yourself just a little bit better. This is how I see you, your story, and your place in it. How you have been feeling makes a lot of sense to me. And I want you to make sense to you too. Because, Elena, I believe you. Mayhem believes you. And we've got you. Here goes. When you have spent a lifetime not being chosen, first by a father who kept you secret, and then by a mother who turned her whole self toward your brother, it makes sense that a part of you stopped believing effort or showing up as yourself would ever matter. Why would you risk taking action, risk showing up, if every single time in the past it was invisible or worse, used against you? So instead, you ended up trying a different tactic. You listen, you gather, you think, you prepare, but you don't act. And that right there is how you have been protecting yourself all along. And I think that that protection goes hand in hand with the way you describe feeling split, like you're watching yourself live life from the outside looking in. Elena, it might help you to know that this isn't an Elena thing. This right here is a daughter thing, or even more accurately, a trauma response thing. What you're describing here with all of us is what us psychobabblers call dissociation. And please let me slow down right here as I say that, because I want to help you and the other daughters listening in to really understand what it is we're talking about, because we're talking to other daughters besides you on this one. For so many daughters, dissociation can be really hard to recognize. Dissociation is your nervous system's way of keeping you safe when feelings or experiences start to feel unbearable. This is what's happening. Instead of letting you sit in the fire or the storm of whatever is happening or whatever it is you're living in, your body gives you distance. It removes you from the weight and the emotional impact of what's happening to you. This is why you're able to function, to get shit done. After all, look at how many fucking people you had to support with your salary all by yourself. My goodness, I lost fucking count on that one, sister. But you get disconnected from yourself in the process. For some daughters, it can feel like floating, like narrating your life in your head instead of living it. It can be like being on autopilot while you're watching from the outside. So what do you do when you notice it now? You don't force yourself to go back in. That's only going to end up flooding your nervous system. And trauma brain is going to end up doing what trauma brain does. It's going to kick in with fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's what it likes to do. Instead, and I know this is going to sound super weird to all of you, but you have to get calm and still and gently, kindly, carefully invite yourselves back into the room. You'll have to plant your feet on the floor and really feel them on the ground. You might look around and name 5 things you see, 3 things you hear, 1 thing you can touch. You might have to hold on to something warm or splash cold water on your face. Anything that can remind you and your body, I'm here, I'm safe. It is okay to be in this moment. These little acts, they're not going to erase dissociation, but they do help you build that bridge back to yourselves. And over time, you're teaching your system that it is safe to stay present, moment to moment, that you don't have to freak out, that you can handle it. And that right there is how your nervous system begins to stretch its capacity a little bit. And it makes a lot of sense to me that you don't quite feel certain of who you are. I think you've been dissociating at times, and I think that was the survival strategy you needed at the time. What else were you supposed to do when you were experiencing something while your mother was crafting this entirely different alternate reality and universe for your experience? You disconnected, and it makes so much sense to me, Elena, that you did that. Now, if it's okay with you, I do want us to take a little bit of a closer look at your family. Your father's absence meant you began life already marked by shame and by secrecy. Your mom's enmeshment with your brother turned her into the heroine of absolutely every story, the martyr, the one who fought for him against the world. And where did that leave you? Well, you were the accessory. Of course you were. You were the anecdote, the tall, brown-skinned daughter who didn't match her mom's fantasy, the one who ended up being dragged along but was never chosen. And here's what is so important for you to know, Elena. You are someone. You, sister. I love that you wanted to be called sister, and now I'm going to be at risk of overusing it. But you, sister, have been someone all along. You are the girl who was shy and quiet only because it was safer, who grew into a woman who loves to sing, to connect, to be called sister, and to laugh. That right there is your essence. It's your spirit. That's not a reaction to your mom. That is the exact opposite of her. That, my friend, is you. So when you ask, how do I know who I am really? My answer is you were already starting to. Your mom worked so hard to convince you otherwise, but your true self has been showing up every single time you let yourself be chatty, funny, expressive, curious, and that isn't rebellion. That right there is you. And here's what I want to talk to you about next. What exactly you were supposed to be doing about all of this, because, sister, you have been living in your head. And while that has helped you and has saved your life during indescribable moments of pain, that separation is hurting you now. It isn't protecting you, and it isn't helping you. For daughters who've survived by living in their heads, whether it be by analyzing, preparing, or observing, it can feel impossible to drop down into your heart. Doing that probably brings up a lot of fear for you. And if that's true, that is also something that makes a lot of sense to me. After all, you learn to keep yourself separate for a reason. Feeling has been dangerous for you in the past, and thinking has been safer. So, of course, that's where you've been living. But healing's about learning how to let all of your parts, all of your little girl selves talk to each other again. And here's what that can look like. First, start small. Pick one simple practice that helps you notice your body. Maybe it's placing a hand on your chest when you feel anxious, or just noticing the rise and the fall of your breath. Then you can try getting more specific with yourself and less generalized. This is going to help you move a little more gently and a little more slowly into your body. So, for example, instead of saying to yourself, I'm overwhelmed, you might find yourself saying to yourself, I notice there's a lump in my throat right now, or my stomach feels tight. That right there is moving from your head to your heart in a little bite-sized way. This is how we get your nervous system to stretch in micro movements, and that will start to feel more possible, more tangible, but also more manageable. Then you have to give yourself permission to pause. You all are going to end up hearing me talk more and more about the pause. I first brought this up inside of our online community a couple of months ago, and honestly, it is a skill I credit with so much of my own healing in recent years. The same healing I've been sharing with all of you here. For most of my life, I was pretty reactive. I've always been, of surprise to no one, a really big feeler. And I've never, ever really felt bad about that. But feeling really big things has also created a really big fixer in me. And oh boy, have I needed to slow her way the fuck down. Because you see, anytime I felt an intense emotion, my instinct was to always rush in and fix it, to repair whatever was broken in me right away. And that urgency ended up becoming my default setting. But then it wasn't just how I treated myself. It crept into my relationships. I know I've been the person who pushed myself and sometimes others too far and too fast. As uncomfortable as that is to admit, I do know it's also the truth. And here's the really special thing I have been learning as I have practiced slowing myself down. When you notice yourself analyzing or spinning, you don't have to slam on the brakes or shame yourself for it. You just add one new question to the conversation you're already having with yourselves. And what do I feel about that? Even if in the moment the answer is, I don't know. That I don't know is still movement. It is still you giving yourself space to breathe, to feel, to pause. And that is where real change can begin. Then you have to practice inside of connection. That is why we have this podcast, our weekly groups, and our online community. But it is also why connection with others in general is so critical. Honestly, I believe it's what's life-saving, because this work is really isolating. Left to ourselves, so many of us get trapped in these hollow echo chambers inside of our own heads. We loop on the same thoughts, the same criticisms, the same stories our mothers programmed into us. And that's why speaking our truth out loud in the presence of another person matters so much. A couple of weeks ago, I had a moment like this with my husband at dinner. I had been beating myself up over a weird interaction where I had been misunderstood. And I kept saying, I know, and running circles in my mind, convinced I must have said something wrong. Finally, he put his hand up and he said, Heather, stop. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just misunderstood. You said something and the other person heard it differently. That doesn't mean you were wrong or that you did anything wrong. And in that moment, I felt myself exhale. I realized how tightly I had been holding the blame, how much I was trying to untangle something that wasn't even mine to fix. It wasn't a mistake on my part, and it really was just a misunderstanding. And that is what happens inside of connection. When we speak out loud and allow someone else to mirror ourselves back to ourselves, we see what we can't see alone, that we aren't always the problem. Sometimes no one is to blame. Sometimes things just happen and we can clean them up, but not until we get out of our own heads and our own way. That is also why connection is such a powerful way to bridge the head and the heart. On our own, we're going to spin. In the presence of someone safe, our nervous systems can regulate enough to let us feel without flooding. We can see more clearly, feel more safely, and begin to trust our own truth again. So when you ask, how do I begin? The answer isn't about giant leaps into big feelings. It's going to be about starting small, noticing the tiniest of things, sharing them with someone you trust, and slowly letting your heart be a part of that conversation again. And I really need to remind you, you, Elena, are already doing it. Writing this letter wasn't just in your head. That right there was your heart too. You let both of them speak inside of this letter. That is the beginning. Now, let's get into the rage. Let's dig in and talk about that. You are holding so much anger at your mom, at the way your brother was controlled, at the lies you were told, at the dignity that was stolen, and you ask if telling her would help. And sister, I know you already know this. It won't, because she cannot hold it. She cannot process or acknowledge your truth. That rage is for you to honor, not for her to receive. Rage, when we look at it through the healing lens, is actually just energy. It's healing. It is your wise mind. It's your system saying, and sometimes, let's admit it, screaming, this wasn't right. I deserved better. My brother deserved better. The work here isn't to tell her only for her to weaponize it and use it against you. It is to give it a place. Your anger, your rage, your grief, your sadness deserves to be seen and heard in places where it will be honored, held, respected. And we know that will never be with your mother. You can write about it. You can move with it and through it. You can pound pillows. You can walk fast. Hell, you can sing, and you can sing as fucking loud as you want to if you think it would help. You can talk about your brother, and you can tell more people about him. You can let your sad and mad have expression in safe ways and with safe people. Rage isn't a problem to solve. It's something that signals to you what is important to you and what matters to you. And grief, well, it sits right next to it. Grief that you were never chosen. Grief that your brother never got to live free. Grief that your mom has been celebrated for what harmed you. And grief, like rage, cannot be solved by her. It can only be tended to by you. So here's what I want to offer you and every daughter listening who hears herself in this story. Listening without acting does not mean you are not healing. It means your body is still trying to trust safety. So start small. Choose one tiny practice. Do it for 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. That is how you build self-trust. Knowing who you are is never going to be about reinventing yourself. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that you already know, the voice that sings, the woman who laughs, the one who feels home on a stage. She has been there all along. Rage is not something to get rid of. It's something to channel. Let it move through your body, not into your mother's ears. And it is never, ever too late. Whether you're 27, 57, 77, daughters are allowed to begin again. Sister, you are not lost. You are here. And you are already doing the work. You are showing up for yourself. Keep raising your hand. Keep saying hi to people, sharing, connecting with things. Every single time you show up in your own life, you are owning yourself just a little bit more. You're naming yourself. You're taking up space. And those are not small things. I know it feels so vulnerable, and I also know it's really fucking hard. And I know you probably wonder what the heck you're doing and if you're doing it right. And I promise you, you are. Mayhem has you. We believe you. We respect your sadness. We respect your rage, and we've got you. And now that you know and we know you can sing, well, consider this an open invitation. We've never done a song on the show, but if you would like to, and it doesn't blow any copyright, I'm not allowed to do a lot of songs because of copyrights, but if you ever want to sing for Mayhem an original song, open invitation, sister. You are in this community of daughters, literally all around the world, from Australia to Central America and so many places in between. All of you are in this together, and I, for sure, most definitely, am in it with you too. Bye for now. If you felt seen in this episode, I want you to know the work doesn't end here. What we're talking about on the podcast, relational trauma, mother wounds, identity, and healing, was never meant to be worked through alone. That's why I've built an entire ecosystem of support around Mother Mayhem, and you can now find all of it over at mayhemdaughters.com. You'll learn more about our weekly support groups, which meet Tuesdays at noon and Thursdays at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. These aren't trauma dumps, they're spaces for real connection, mutual support, and movement making. You'll also find our private online community, Mayhem Daughters, where the conversation continues between episodes. It's not social media, it's something safer, deeper, and intentionally designed to support your healing. And if you're not quite ready to share in a group but want my eyes on your story, I offer one-on-one Mayhem consultations as well. You can learn more about all of it over at mayhemdaughters.com. If this show has helped you and you want to help keep it ad-free, you can do that through the sponsor link on the website. But I also want to be clear. If you're already a member of group in the community or you've worked with me one-on-one, you are already supporting the show. There's nothing more I'm asking of you. If you have a story or reflection of your own, I'd love to hear it. You can send a message or a voice note of 10 minutes or less to heather@mayhemdaughters.com. There's no mayhem without your stories or your questions. And if you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, please share the show with her. Your reviews and social shares make a real difference, and I hope you'll consider doing so. And lastly, a heartfelt thank you to Heather Clark for editing the show. She's been in it with me since 2016 and somehow always knows what I meant to say, even when I don't quite say it right. This isn't just a show. It's a community, and you're already a part of it. I'm so glad to have you in it with me.